Few people know disruption as well as Alex Mashinsky. Alex was one of the inventors of voice over IP, a technology that many people use every single day without a second thought to a time before when making calls was difficult, expensive, and worked only inconsistently. With that experience in his back pocket, as well as many years and investments in a number of successful startups, Alex is at it again, and this time he's hoping to disrupt the world of banking. His new company, Celsius Network, works on the blockchain and helps users grow their wealth with cryptocurrency. On this episode of IT Visionaries, Alex and Ian dive into how Celsius is working to build a world without banks, what advantages there are working on the blockchain, and how the future might look different thanks to this technology. Enjoy the episode. This podcast is sponsored by the Lightning Platform by Salesforce. Salesforce just introduced the Lightning Platform Mobile, the low-code mobile app development platform that empowers anyone to easily build, publish, and manage AI-powered mobile apps for employees and for customers. Find out more at salesforce.com/buildmobileapps.
Welcome to another episode of IT Visionaries. I'm Ian Faison, Chief Content Officer here at Mission.org. And we have on the other line, Alex, what's going on?
Doing great. Just finished blockchain week here in New York. Gonna try to get some rest this weekend.
Yeah, what a time to be talking blockchain with the IT Visionaries community after you just spent a week in New York talking about it. First, I would love to get into a little bit about what you're working on and building at Celsius Network. You know, obviously you're founder and CEO. What was the reason behind why you wanted to build Celsius Network?
So slogan is Unbank Yourself, right? And the idea behind it is that really we feel that the banks have become such monopolistic institutions that they stop caring for their depositors. They only care for their shareholders. And they're basically extracting way too much from all of us, the 99% of Americans that are not part of the 1%, and giving it all to the few people who are the major shareholders of these institutions. And my background, one of the first guys to do voice over IP. I wrote the patents and built the original gateways and things like that. And people looked at me and said, "Oh, you can't bring down the phone companies. You know, they're the strongest, most powerful companies on the planet. And those companies used to charge us $3 a minute, to call our friends or family. And now we are having this phone call with you for free, right? So tenacity and doing the right thing does pay off. And here, the next mission after taking down the phone companies is to take down the banks, because we're all going to be better off if we created an organization that acts in our best interest, just like all these apps, like we're using Zoom today, right? It's giving us a lot of value almost for free. So we can do well and we can do good. And usually it's better if the good comes first. So that's what Celsius is trying to do.
Yeah, we had Anthony Pompliano on a while ago. And, he said a lot of the same stuff that, the power of blockchain is, as a disruptor is something that is similar to exactly what you talked about. Obviously you being one of the ones, you've won numerous awards, including the Albert Einstein Technology Medal in 2000, Technology Foresight and Innovation, Top Entrepreneur Award, and been nominated for Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year Award twice. You have a long background of disruption. You have a long background of pushing what's possible. Like, why now? Why with Celsius, and why unbanking?
So for every technologies, there's the right time. And one of the companies I started, I think you mentioned it, GroundLink, was Uber before Uber in 2003. And it was just too early, right? And just a few years later, somebody came and did exactly what we did, and it was the hottest thing. So I hope our timing is good here, because I feel that there's 7.5 billion people on the planet that want to earn more on their money, right? They want to pay less on their loans, and it's just never going to come from the banks. I mean, the banks are just not. They could care less. The attitude is, basically we have this God-given monopoly to take your money for free. and then lend it to your neighbor on his credit card at 25% and pay you nothing for that, or pay you maybe 1%, right? So they keep 95% of the value, 24 out of 25%, just because you need a safe place to put your money, right? So it's just a completely ridiculous idea. So I think what Celsius does is charges a third of what bank charge on loans, and then gives 80% of what we collect back to the depositor. So we think that's a much more fair arrangement, and we don't think that a toll collector in the middle should be keeping 80% of the value. They should be distributing 80% of the value. So we much more model ourselves after Costco and Amazon and people like that, who really do everything for their customers, right? So, and I think that's what the internet revolution is all about. And this is what the blockchain is, a new revolution, right? It's even a bigger wave than the internet wave because it touches all the money in the world. It's like a new set of rails, just like a voice over IP needed a new set of rails to disrupt the phone companies. The blockchain is a new set of rails that is disrupting the banking and the money supply, which really, again, has been abused by central banks and governments for the last 50 years.
So as you started building this company, you officially launched, I think was it July of 2018? How long have you been working on this before you launched the company? I'd imagine that you've been thinking about blockchain for a long time.
Yeah, so blockchain is a 30-year-old technology, right? I mean, it's not something that was invented just a few years ago. And I tried to dabble in fintech over the years. Like I was trying to create money that you could attach to your email and send to other people back in 2003. And it was just very, very difficult to do that, to solve the double spend problem where, because the problem with digital assets is that when if you take a picture of your cat and you send it to your parents, you still own a copy of the picture, right? So it's very difficult to do that with money. You can't keep replicating money and figuring out who actually has the money at any time. So the beauty of the blockchain technology is that and especially what Satoshi Nakamoto did with the Bitcoin, is that it created the technical infrastructure and gave the right incentives for everybody to operate this network, right? And so after 2009, 2010, when I started kind of taking a closer look at the technology, I didn't think it was going to be scalable because the amount of electricity and processing that it required. But seeing the resilience of the community after Mt. Gox, like seeing basically people lose all of their coins and still keep going, dust it off, wake up, get up, and keep walking. This is a serious phenomenon. This is not just a toy or a game or anything like that. And so I looked at, okay, how do we disrupt? How do we actually launch something where we can take down this monopoly that the banks have and deliver something to the community? And we didn't really launch Celsius until 2017 because there were just too many obstacles and too many unknowns, both on the regulatory side and on the technology side, to be able to launch a service. But when we kind of figured out all the pieces and realized that we can deliver a service, a utility, so anyone on the planet can basically convert their currency into a stable coin or a Bitcoin and deposit it with us and earn interest, right? We pay up to 8% interest on these coins. So 8 times more than the bank pays you. And do it for everyone, right? Everybody on the planet can join this platform. And Ethereum, which is the main blockchain we're working on, can support that because we only do basically one transaction a week. We only pay interest once a week. So we're not really loading the network with stuff like some other people tried to do, where they brought down like CryptoKitties, right? Which was a service that somebody came up with, brought down the entire Ethereum network. So we tried to be also a responsible citizen and come up with an infrastructure solution that did not tax the global blockchain and enabled everybody to benefit, but not harm the infrastructure that we're all using. So we launched, like you said, in the first app, the launch of June 2018. And we just announced yesterday at Consensus that we have over $200 million in deposits. These are coin deposits, right? And we did $1.2 billion in coin loans, which is how we generate income for all of our depositors. So So it's going extremely well. If this pace continues, we will be probably one of the largest or the largest holders of assets in this industry. So, and it's great news for the community because basically, I think the ability to earn this return is something that is, I see that as a God-given right? All of us should have our money work for us, not just us work for our money, right? And worldwide, it's a huge problem. I mean, the people in many countries around the world have negative yields. They actually have to pay the bank
Yeah.
to take their money, and we're not far from that in the United States. So, time has come for the people to take the power back and take some of these profits that the bank are generating for their investors and deliver that back to the community.
Well, and I think, you hit on something key there is that the trend is going in the opposite way, right? It's not like things are getting, we're not getting more interest as like over time. And you look at, a lot of these, 1% or 0.5% or whatever it is in your standard like savings account, like it doesn't even keep up with inflation. It is negative yield. Like you're still losing money. There's a lot of crypto wallets that have kind of like popped up since kind of, I would say, in the last 2 years. And it seems like what you're building at Celsius is so far beyond that. The ability to pay interest to your customers, the fact that you're thinking about your customers like a technology company thinks about customers, or just any mature company that, these are people that we need to continue to serve and that we're going to have their best interests. How does having like a big company mindset, or maybe it's not a big company mindset, but maybe it's just like a modern mindset, help you shape the needs of the people that you're serving?
So look, I'm an entrepreneur and a founder, right? I'm definitely not a big company mindset, right? I think a lot of financial institutions as well as technology companies are looking at this blockchain thing as decentralization and scratching their heads saying, gosh, how do I get into this? I know there's something good here. How do I inject some blockchain into my organization? And that's just, upside down. I mean, the blockchain or decentralization is not a sanitizer or some vitamin that you inject into your body, right? I mean, you have to reinvent your process. You have to reinvent what you do and utilize these rails to deliver something better, cheaper, faster, right? So everything I described before talks about something that cannot be done any other way. You cannot take 7 billion people and pay them interest if you're using banking or credit cards or anything like that, right? Because what they're going to earn is going to be less than what the fee of sending money is. So the beauty of the blockchain is that you can deliver, fractions of a dollar to anyone, and the cost of delivering that is almost zero, right? So it enables this functionality, and because of that, we can offer the service we offer to the masses. So it's really, I see a lot of people who are, basically trying to do real estate on a blockchain or trying to do some other stuff on the blockchain, and all they're doing is taking an old business and trying to inject some blockchain into it, right? And so it's very hard for a lot of executives and a lot of innovators to reinvent themselves and to think differently, because you have to really mold yourself into the technology, not mold the technology into yourself. Again, you see that if you look at everything I've done in my career, I mean, these were all startups that kind of took advantage of this or that innovation to really reinvent this or that industry. And here we're just doing that again. But it starts with the idea that you want to do good and you want to provide better service to many people, because otherwise you're going to end up where the internet and where the blockchain has ended up in the first phase, which was just a bunch of toll collectors coming and saying, oh gosh, you want to buy some Bitcoin? Great. We're going to create an exchange, a centralized exchange, and charge you 5% to buy a Bitcoin. So most of the vendors today on the blockchain space are not really here to make the world a better place. They're here to just extract the toll as many people try to onboard to the blockchain. We don't charge any fees. We don't charge any penalties. Like I said, we're unbanking. So we're trying to do the opposite of what banks do to you every day. And only if we can generate a return, then we take 80% of that and give it back to our community.
So basically, like you're getting a percentage of the interest that you generate, and that's the revenue stream?
Yes, exactly.
So, and then how are you generating the interest, or is that the secret sauce?
No, it's not secret at all. It's like so you're familiar with Binance? They have a coin called BNB.
Yeah.
So what Binance does, for example, right? They run an exchange. They sell you Bitcoin. They sell you something else. They collect fees, right? And then they take 20% of those fees and they use them to buy their own token, right? And that's what makes the token valuable, because all the holders in the community know that, okay, Binance is a successful company. They're going to be buying this many tokens every week or every month. So we kind of do the same thing. We think that the lending business or the borrowing business is 1,000 times bigger than the exchange business, right? I mean, the number of people that need to buy or sell cryptocurrencies is much smaller than the number of people that need loans or want to earn interest. So we created a similar model, but instead of paying 20%, we pay 80%. And instead of focusing on trading, we focused on giving people cheap loans. We only do asset-backed loans, and we basically pay interest or pay 80% of it back to the community. And so who needs loans, right? Everybody needs loans. There isn't a person on the planet that doesn't need a loan. Right now, we only do asset-backed lending. So you have to give us an asset. And today we only accept digital assets, and we lend you against those assets. So because these are asset-backed lending, the rates are very low. We charge as low as 5% per year for the loan.
Yeah. Okay. Dang, that's crazy. So you're loaning it like, wow, that's
between 5 and 9%. And part of that is that it's amazing, but most of the states in the United States have old laws. I mean, these are laws that are 70 or even 100 years old that incentivize low interest lending. So if you charge less than the usual laws, which is 15%, if you charge less than that, you don't need a lending license, because the state incentivizes you to issue the loans. So the only reason the banks have licenses is because they all charge more than 15%. When we showed up and started charging 9%, and people said, "Oh, where's your license?" And we're like, "No, you don't need a license." Just people. Sometimes you have to dig to find these things, but some of the good laws are still buried there, and you can use them.
Well, it's really funny. Quick aside here, but one of the companies that we've used in the past is this company, Street Shares, where they do affinity-based lending. So basically, they have bonds that you can buy for gives you 5% yield over a year, and then they lend at 7.5 or more to businesses that are owned by veterans, military veterans. And basically, it's like trust-based loans, but it's the same exact sort of thing, like the exact same sort of thing. It's like it's under a certain amount, which is why they can do it. Wow, that's fascinating.
We didn't really invent anything new. We just take all the profits that the banks take for themselves or their shareholders and give it to the other guy.
So what would be your advice for, our listeners that are, C-level leaders, that are CIOs and CTOs that want to start thinking about blockchain for their organizations? I love that what you said is, it's not a vitamin. It's not a pill that you take and just inject blockchain into the business. That you need to have like a principled approach and looking like at building from the bottom up. So, and maybe you heard some stuff at, some best practices at, this week at Crypto Week in New York, but I'm curious, you're around this so much. What are some of those best practices or use cases that you've seen that big companies are doing it right?
Well, I can't tell you that anyone is doing it right, because there is no killer app on the blockchain yet, right? So Bitcoin is 10 years old and almost 11 now, right? And we're all struggling for scale, right? I mean, when I did voice over IP and I showed up and started showing people how they can make phone calls for 20 or 30 cents instead of $2 or $3 a minute, it was very easy to convert them, right? And hundreds of millions of people, now billions of people are using the service, right? So with the blockchain, it's a little bit different. It's not here, it cost you $2 and now it's going to cost you zero, right? So you see, the problem is that most Americans, most people around the world, they don't feel the inflation on their money. They don't feel that the dollar is losing 2 to 3% every year. They don't feel the money they did not earn on their money. They don't feel the $30 billion in profit that JP Morgan made last year, extracting that from their customers, from their depositors, because they don't pay them any interest, right? So all that is invisible, right? So invisible for most people, and they just go to work and they pay their taxes, and whatever's left, they deposit in the bank, and they hope they're going to finish the month. So it's very difficult to convince people that you, the new startup, is a trusted institution and that you can do better and you're actually going to do what you say and you're going to act in people's best interests. And the problem we're having is that, look, Lehman Brothers went under, for example, in August, I think, of 2018. 3 months earlier, their auditor issued the audit for 2017 and said that they were a marvelous and amazing organization. And then just a few months later, $600 billion worth of value, poof, disappeared. And the taxpayers had to bail out all the other banks. So we cannot trust our system, right? Satoshi created the Bitcoin and wrote the white paper trying to explain to everyone in the world that you're not going to fix that. No moral hazard, no one held accountable. You're not going to fix that by passing new laws or by electing new politicians. You need a new economic system. And if you think about communism or socialism or capitalism, and I was lucky enough to live in all three systems, and this is the fourth system. Decentralization is a fourth system. But it's only a fourth system if all of us, the average Joe, all of us take this power in our hands and stop giving our money for free to the people that do not act in our best interest. I'm saying all of that in the context that anyone who's listening to this, if you work in a company, you have to do what Netflix did, for example, right? Where they reinvented their own business. They knew that online streaming is going to kill their DVD business, and they went and killed their own business, right? And here, you need to kill your existing business and reinvent it on the blockchain. And when we say rails, the analogy is that, you can't take the cars and the caboose and just put it on a new set of rails, because these new rails have a completely different width. And the old stuff is not going to run on the new rails. That's why you have to create a whole new business model. And what Celsius is doing is basically creating a new business model for the banking business, right? Using the blockchain as a delivery mechanism. A lot of people looking at this and scratching their head and saying, it's never going to be successful, right? You can't do that. No one is going to trust you with giving you their money. People from all over the world are not just going to take their hard-earned cash, convert it into some stable coin or Bitcoin, and ship it to you, hoping that you will act in their best interest. And because people have been abused for so many years, from a financial standpoint, they're doing that every day. And right now we're adding, without any ads or without anything, we're adding $2 to $3 million a day in deposits, because people are fed up, right? They don't see a future for themselves. And suddenly when you show them a path where their money can make money instead of them working for it, they believe it and they trust it, right? And we have a huge responsibility on our shoulders to deliver on this, because it's not just for the depositors. Every bank, every regulator wants this thing to be shut down, because we're endangering here the franchise, the entire franchise for this entire financial community.
So for the folks out there that, have money in whatever it is, Bitcoin, stablecoin, whatever it is, in different wallets, like how does this work compared to your normal bank? Can you just switch over from something to Celsius? Like, how does that work in terms of, like, if they wanted to get, the 6.4% interest, or if they wanted to earn 6.4% interest on Bitcoin on Celsius, how does that work?
So yeah, let's go through it, because it is confusing for a lot of people. So basically, think of your salary as a value that you convert. You convert your work to a salary, right? You convert your hours worked into dollars, and then you give that value to an institution, a bank, and then you have to move it into a savings account, right? And that savings account earns interest, hopefully 1% a year or more. And whatever is earned, the bank earns it for you and then deposits it in your account. So Celsius does exactly the same thing, right? Celsius basically takes whatever value you created and just says to you, look, instead of converting that into dollars, convert it, for example, into a stable coin. What is a stable coin? It's a cryptocurrency. It's an ERC20 token issued by Circle, for example. USDC is a stable coin, which is a digital currency that is backed by a dollar, meaning for every token that you buy from USDC, from Circle, there is a dollar sitting at Goldman Sachs. They're their backers. They give them $400 million to do this. And you know that at any time you want your dollars back, you can always redeem your dollars for fair value. So there's no risk of Bitcoin going up or down or something else happening. At any time, you can always take your stuff out, go back to Circle, and the dollars are sitting in a trust account, and you can just pull your dollars back. So now you can basically deposit that. We don't sell the USDC. We don't sell Bitcoin. You have to buy it somewhere else. And the only service we provide is that you can download our app. We give you an address with BitGo, our custodian. They're a trust company as well. And you can deposit these stable coins with us, almost like a savings account. We're just not a bank. And we put these things to work, just like a bank puts them to work. They lend them out. We charge 9%. 80% of 9% is 7.1%. And that's what we pay you out. So we pay you in USDC. We pay you in stable coin. So if you give us 100 USDC on January 1st, at the end of the year, you're going to have 107.1 USDC. You can withdraw this at any time. There's no lockup. There's no minimum period. There's no early termination fee or contract or anything. You can deposit at any time and withdraw at any time. And whatever is the earned amount, you can convert back into dollars and ship it back to your bank account. So the same process works for 18 other currencies that we have. So we have Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Ripple, and so on, so on. All the most popular ones where we can generate yield on these cryptocurrencies.
Compare that to like a Robinhood or a Cash App or something like that that's out there. Like what's kind of the difference between Celsius and one of those things?
So all the fintech companies, right? All these young companies that are dollar denominated, right? They do services for you in dollars. They're all stuck in this cycle that the Fed controls, right? And so their yields, their returns are dramatically lower than ours because, unfortunately, what we've done in 2008, when the Federal Reserve basically had to bail out the entire U.S. economy, is that they lowered the rates to zero and they allowed the financial institutions, especially banks, to earn very high returns so they could recapitalize themselves. And what happened is that, we're 10, 11 years later, and most Americans can earn money on their money. The banks are more powerful, more profitable than ever before, and the Fed cannot raise the rate. Every time the Fed is trying to raise the rate, the market throws a tantrum, it drops a few hundred points, and the Fed backs down and says, okay, we're not going to raise rates. So, and that's all banks and financial institutions crying like a baby, basically saying, no, we have easy money. Why are you taking it away from us? Don't take it away from us. We got so used to this easy money that we don't know how to make money any other way. So anyone who swims in that pool of liquidity that the Fed basically flooded the market with will earn very, very low returns, right? Because they cannot deploy the assets effectively, and all those assets are yielding low single digits. The beauty of cryptocurrencies is that we swim in a different pool. We're running on different rails, and we operate in a completely different environment. And the yields in those environments are as high as double digits, right? So the banks can generate double-digit returns. If you do a quick search, a Google search on JP Morgan return on assets, you'll see that they're yielding 17 to 24%. So JP Morgan can easily pay you 7.1%, just like Celsius does. They just don't want to. And they don't have to because no one else offers that either. So half of JP Morgan's 17 trillion in assets does not pay any interest whatsoever because most Americans are too lazy to move their few $100s from their checking account to their savings account. So what we do is we basically say it doesn't matter if you moved it, you didn't move it. It doesn't matter what you're thinking or what you're doing. Automatically, anything you have in deposit with us earns the highest yield. And we treat a person with $1 and a person with $10 million exactly the same way, right? Because we're always acting in the best interest of the deposit. We're not trying to steal as much money from you as possible. So that's the fundamental kind of difference and the opposite, right? We do the opposite of what the banks do.
What about for like safety and security and things like that? I know that, one of the huge concerns that a lot of people have is around like, is this going to last? Is this going to, to be around? Is my money, secure? Because I think that that's the thing that obviously people are paying for with peace of mind, right? With their cash, they're paying for peace of mind by putting it in a bank. I think we know that the crypto is here; it's not going anywhere. But I think for a lot of people, they don't necessarily feel that way. What does something like Celsius offer in terms of like risk profile?
So look, we're not a bank, right? And we're not pretending to be a bank, right? But you think banks are safe, right? And when you dig in, you realize that the safest bank is leveraged 10 to 1. And other banks like Deutsche Bank are leveraged 50 to 1. That means that for every dollar you gave them, they lent out $50 to people. So even if 2% of their loans go bad, they are out of business, right? They become delinquent. And that's what happened in 2008, right? I mean, 2008, the banks woke up in the morning and realized that they lost more than 5% of their assets. And when you leverage, again, 10 to 1, 20 to 1, you disappear overnight. That's how Lehman Brothers went to liquidation, right? Because they were leveraged 50 to 1 and they lost about 5% of their assets. And they couldn't open for business on Monday morning. So, we were told, we were sold this idea that banks are safe and banks are here to stay. But every 10 or 15 years, we end up bailing them out. And we bail them out with taxpayers' money and with cheap loans issued through very, very low interest rates that the Fed issues them as capital. So the reality is that what Celsius tried to do is create a financial institution that has negative leverage. What does it mean, negative leverage? Always have more deposits than loans. And we're using the blockchain as an immutable mechanism to be able to provide that full transparency, right? If you download our app, you will see that we publish in real time what we have on deposit, how many customers, what's the average deposit, how many loans did we issue. Everything is published right there on our community page. But if you don't trust us, you can go to the blockchain and you can audit everything we've said in real time. You don't have to wait for Ernst & Young to issue a report 15 months from now when they finish the audit. You can do it in real time by just looking at the blockchain and verifying that everything we're saying is correct, because that's the beauty of the blockchain. It's fully transparent. You can't hide anything. So that kind of transparency does not exist. There isn't a single institution in the world today that does this. Try to do that. Try to go to your bank, and when you make your next deposit, ask the bank to give you full audit of where your money is going to be used for, who is going to be borrowing it, did they pay it back, did the bank distribute that loan or the interest back to you, did you get 80% of that or 50% of that or whatever, right? The bank will laugh at you, right? Or if you want to demand from them to give you a higher interest, they'll laugh at you, right? So what we're fixing or what we're replacing is this attitude that banks have, which again, I've seen again and again in the industries that I've been involved with, where they basically have this God-given monopoly to take your money and give you nothing for it. So like the movie Network said, I'm mad as hell. I'm just not going to take this anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm doing this on behalf of 7 billion people. I'm part of the 1%. I'm part of the 1/10 of 1%, right? Personally, because I've come to this country, did 7 startup, raised $1 billion, had $3 billion in exits. But I have 6 kids at home, and I can tell you that I don't see how they're going to do better than me. I don't see how they are going to prosper in a country where you just don't have a chance, right? 90% of Americans don't have a chance to they have the same wealth as 1/10 of the country, right? 33,000 families have the same wealth of 300 million Americans. So, I don't feel that is fair, and I don't feel that is something that this country was created for. And the only way to break that out is to give the average Joe a chance to earn more on their own money, right? Warren Buffett famously said that many times, that the most powerful force in the universe is interest payments, right? And most of us don't have access to that, right? Most of us, he's done an excellent job investing in companies that paying dividends and reinvesting that again and again and again. But he's done it for himself and his shareholders, right? I don't think anyone received a great dividend check. Most Americans, most of your listeners didn't receive a great dividend check, neither from their bank or from Warren Buffett. So the system works very well for the wealthy, but it doesn't work very well for the people who don't have a PhD in economics or didn't figure out how to create returns on their capital.
So for our listeners who want to check out Celsius, do you got a promo code to share on air with the listeners that want to sign up? Is there anything they need?
So all you have to do is go to the App Store or the Android store and download the Celsius Network app, which again, we don't have any promos because we treat the little guy and the big guy exactly the same way. So we don't do special deals or anything like that. We guarantee that every Monday, we pay interest. We pay that based on our earnings the previous week. We publish all that information, and whatever you put into the wallet, you just become pro rata of the entire pool, and that's what you're earning, right? So you can see how much the whole pool earned, and you can see that you received a fair distribution. Again, we only pay in cryptocurrencies, so we only take deposits in cryptocurrency and pay in cryptocurrency.
I set you up for that one. I knew there wasn't that. Okay, well, we got a few more minutes here. Anything else that you wanted to touch on before we get into our lightning round question?
So for me, this is a call to action. Like when I do these podcasts or interviews or whatever, for me, this is an opportunity to really get a lot of people involved in the community, learn about the crypto community, and bring others, right? With this we're only successful if many, many people join. And the only way they join is if everybody who's listening goes and spreads the gospel to 10 other people, right? So, and I don't mean the Celsius gospel. I'm talking about the decentralization and blockchain and things like that, right? Because my feeling is that, again, this is the fourth system, right? It's here to make capitalism even better. And unless we take the power and do it the right way, the only way we can make this happen is to convince people to stop depositing money in banks and put it in a place where they can actually have an organization that acts in their best interest. The perfect analogy here is, like, again, going back to voice over IP, probably none of your listeners know how VoIP works, right? But they'll use it every day. And we want the same thing here. We want MOIP, or money over IP, to work the same way, where you use it every day, but you don't need to understand how the blockchain or crypto or consensus or any of this stuff, open ledger, all these things work. So Celsius is basically hiding all that complexity behind a very, very simple app that acts in your best interest. And all you have to do is decide, do you want a risky asset like Bitcoin or altcoins, or do you want a safe asset like stable coins? And then you can basically just let it ride, right? Let it do what it does and enjoy the benefits.
It's interesting because I signed up for the app in preparation for this. And it is interesting how simple, and kudos to your team, how simple your team made it. And I think that a lot of times you see the best innovation in the simplicity. Obviously, Apple's famous for this, Google's famous for this, in providing a simple user experience that's kind of a crystal clear value proposition to the customer. Can you talk about just like a little bit before we get into the lightning round here, actually creating the product? You created voice over IP, which was an extremely simple process, simple product, the very non-simple process once before. Like, how did you think about creating this product?
So luckily for me, I'm old enough to have lived through the internet revolution. And I can tell you the first few years of internet, 90 to 95, it was a miserable experience, right? Dial-up BBSs where you had to dial a different number for every service you wanted. And then the Netscape moment came, right? And kind of, even though it wasn't a perfect product, it basically immediately showed you that there was a much better way to navigate and surf and so on. So, obviously Apple with the iPhone, the same thing. So when you've lived through this several times, you instinctively, viscerally know what is a good experience and what is a bad experience. And I think the team here at Celsius, we have 65 people, have set a very high bar for ourselves not to release a product before we felt that everybody on the planet can understand it and use it, and not have to know anything about cryptocurrencies or cryptography or private keys or public keys or what that even means, right? So it wasn't easy, right? And again, the technology wasn't there for several years, so we had to wait and make sure that when we launch, we have all the pieces to deliver this and that it works for everybody, right? Because, it still is an issue for many customers that they either don't trust or don't understand how these things work. So I think we've done well, but there's plenty more. I mean, we have a lot of stuff in the pipeline that we want to add that will make it even simpler, right? And part of this is adoption. Part of this is making sure that the vendors and the other people who are on the other side of the transaction cooperate as well, so you can remove the obstacles, remove all the different hurdles that make people take a few extra steps, like, for example, buying the stable coins from Circle instead of buying them directly in the app, right? So these are the things that we're still working on to kind of remove more and more and more of these things, so it will be a one-click transaction, just like when you do a VoIP call, you look at somebody's name, you click on it, and you talk to them. So that's the kind of experience we want to have at the end.
There's the moment in the onboarding process where you have to enter your social security number. I'd imagine that there's a significant drop-off portion at that moment in the onboarding process, or maybe there's not. Maybe maybe that's not true. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, so we actually have a lot of barriers. We have a KYC ML barrier, which is very hard for people because of the problems with identity theft and things like that on the internet. So we decided from day one that we're going to be a good actor. We're going to do everything by the book. And we have 3 different law firms telling us every day what we're allowed and not allowed to do. So we have all these steps that are here to make sure that not just we're compliant with the law, but also that everybody in the community is a good actor, right? Because you don't want bad apples in this community. Like, a few bad guys doing bad things can blow up the entire service for everybody else. So we've taken great care in making sure that we are building the service in a way that will deter bad actors and deter scammers and people like that from entering our community. We have to ask for a social security number because the income you're generating here, we have to report to the IRS if you're a U.S. citizen. For know your customer and anti-money laundering reasons, we have to ask you for your driving license and for your passport and things like that. So there's definitely a high drop rate, probably over 50% from the people who kind of download the app to the people who go through all of these steps. But the rewards are the fact that you know that the people who are in our community are depositing more and more and more. Like you mentioned before, the average person that we have has over 10 wallets or accounts on exchanges, and we can see them. They usually would make a small deposit from one account. They'll wait a few weeks to make sure they got paid interest, and then you'll start seeing trickles. Right now we almost 9 deposits, right? So our average user has given us 9 deposits, and most of these come from different addresses. So you can see the trust level basically building up, and people basically putting more and more assets with us. And our job is to continue delivering this high yield, right? Because it's easy to do that with $10 million, but it's very difficult to do it with $10 billion. So what we're working feverishly is to make sure that we can balance having enough deposits and at the same time being able to deploy them and earn this return, so we can scale this for the entire community, right? And that's really the challenge. I mean, I've done this successfully with Voice over IP. We cleared VoIP for 4,000 phone companies all over the world, managed over 10% of the world's VoIP traffic through my company Arbanet, right? And billions of people use the service. So I've seen this movie before with Voice over IP. I know how it ends. And we're just basically getting there faster than other people because of our unique experience.
All right, let's get into lightning round. These questions are fast and easy, just like the lightning platform from Salesforce. Fast and easy questions. Are you ready?
Sure, let's do it.
What app are you using on your phone that's the most fun?
The most fun, wow. And probably Snapchat with the crazy stuff that my kids send me. So definitely probably the most fun over there.
What about your favorite vacation spot?
I like kite surfing, so anywhere where there's wind and calm seas, that's my spot. So it could be Long Island, or it could be Portugal, or you name it. Like anywhere where there's a good wind. I'm sure my kids want to do something else, but I drag them to where we have some wind.
What about your favorite book or podcast that you've read or listened to recently?
There's a lot of amazing podcasts. I did the Pump one, like that you mentioned before. Yep. So I have an episode with him. He's very good. I think he squeezes everything out of you. So he's very good listener, and he asks great questions. I've done probably over 100 of these, so I can't pick favorites, but and I listen to a bunch as well. So definitely there are so many of them now, so that if you can pick your flavor, and there's going to be 10 to choose from. So a lot of good content out there.
What about your favorite time-saving tool? You're a busy guy.
So my favorite tool is writing the 5 most important things at the end of the day, and then looking at them first thing in the morning. And what I find out many times is that what I thought was important is completely not relevant after you had a good night's sleep. So you can calibrate what you need to work on, and it shows you where the delta is, like what you think is important that's not so important, or reevaluate the things that you really need to focus on.
What is your best advice for a first-time CEO and founder?
So it's a very difficult job. I mean, it's a lonely job. It's a job where you have to question yourself all the time. And it's easy when you're right, but when you're wrong, and when you swimming against the tide, and you continue to make mistakes and you don't understand why, no one has the answers for you. So the problem with this is that you don't have the time to figure it out. I mean, again, as an eight-time founder of different companies in different industries, I can tell you that there is no book or person that you can call on who will give you all the answers. So usually my answers are that the best advice is always raise more money than you need, and always hire as many smart people as you can, which obviously you heard many times, but you need to understand, you need to know yourself, and need to know what are your weak points. And when you're hiring these smart people, they have to cover those weak points for you, right? And they have to cover them 5 times better than you can do the job, right? And that's where a lot of entrepreneurs fail. They hire people that walk, smell, and talk exactly the way they do. And especially in the blockchain space, it's nine geeks and a dog, like, for example, Celsius, we have half of our team is women, right? You want a revolution, you want the world to adopt what you're doing. Guess what? Half of the people on the planet are women. So you better hire some women into your company, otherwise you're just not going to build the right product. So it's things like this that seem obvious, but I see too many companies that are failing to deliver on them, and they don't understand the consequences.
What question do you never get asked that I didn't ask you today and that Pomp didn't ask you that you wish you were asked more often?
Well, I would say that people don't say, well, Alex, you're already rich. Why are you doing this? Are you really doing it for the people? I don't believe you, right? So no one calls me out on that. Like, people are basically, they either believe or they don't believe themselves, but they don't basically pin you and say, okay, I want to understand why you are doing this for other people, because I'm sure that there is a selfish reason in there, and you're just not telling us about it. So that's like one thing that I think is an important question that probably not getting asked often enough.
So why are you doing it?
So again, I don't know if it's my communist upbringing. Like, I was 7 when I left, but still, I think I've like 1% of me is still there, believing that we're all good and we could all just live on this planet and act in everybody's best interest. But I think I managed to find ways to where I can do well only after I did good, and only then I did well. Like Voice of IP, we did a lot of good, right? I mean, we did a lot of good all over the planet, and then we did well, right? I did the wireless in the subways in New York, right? So there was 10 years of convincing the MTA to give us a license to put something. Yeah. I used wireless in the subways in Paris 35 years ago. So it was just completely ridiculous that the 8 million people go down a few steps and disconnect from the world every day. So, but this was doing good, convincing the city, and then getting the phone companies to pay for it and giving it for free to 8 million people every day, So Celsius is not something new. Celsius is just another way that I found to do good, right? Do good for, hopefully, for 7 billion people, and do well. Because how do we do well? And a lot of people, again, neglect to ask this question. We've proven again and again that the companies that can amass a huge network are worth a lot of money. WhatsApp, which is the most successful VoIP company, much more successful than my company, Arbinet, has managed to sell itself for $22 billion to Facebook, even though they had zero in revenues. They didn't make $1 in revenues, right, when they sold. because they don't charge anything. So Celsius plans to do the same thing. Celsius plans to add billions of customers and tens of billions or hundreds of billions of dollars in assets, and eventually sell itself only if someone promises to continue doing what we're doing forever in the same format. And then we'll do good for ourselves,
Yeah, I mean, I think every innovation, every technological innovation. I don't know if you ever read Clayton Christensen, but he talks about something that's exponentially better than nothing, right? And that's what it really feels like. A lot of this blockchain, what the future of it is like you said, we'll look back and say like we were just kind of giving away our money for nothing in return for how long. And it kind of just feels like that'll be, the case in the future when we realize, oh, there's a way better way of doing this. So any final thoughts, anything to plug? Obviously, everyone should check out Celsius, but anything else?
No, look, we are a community of users, right? So we have about 85,000 users right now, downloads, and what we need is much more feedback, right? I mean, we want this to work everywhere on the planet. And right now, about half of our users are Americans, half are from over 120 other countries. But what we need is a lot of feedback. And we have a very active community right now. But we would love for everyone who's listening here to try the product and tell us what we're doing wrong, what we're doing right, and what we can do better. Because our mission is to, again, create the best product and deliver the most value to our members. But I'm sure there's simple things that we can do even better, and love to hear from you guys.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate you coming on the show, and good luck, going forward. This is exciting stuff.
Yep. Thanks for having us. And let's do it again. Compare notes in a year or two and see where we raise the bar.
Salesforce just introduced Salesforce Blockchain, the industry's first truly declarative blockchain platform integrated into your CRM. Learn more at salesforce.com/blockchain.